Previously, on Star Trek Universe.
Yeah, but dick jokes aren't offensive unless people are really attached to their dick, and I'm not, so...
Clearly,
yeah.
Where do you suppose your dick is? Like in a jar
by
of
now,
formaldehyde?
by now, just a bunch of atoms. I doubt they keep them.
I would think they would. On this episode of Star Trek Universe, Effie and I are whisked away to a 19th century castle filled with artifacts from time long past, where we meet his exuberant proprietor, a harpsichord-playing madman, General Trelane, retired, otherwise known as the Squire of Gothos. Our review after these words from our mystery sponsors. Welcome into Star Trek Universe. This edition features our continuing mission to explore Star Trek, the original series. I am your host, David C. Roberson, an old hand at Classic Trek.
And I am Effie Ophelders, which means I must be the person who has never seen any of this shit.
That's right. You haven't.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, now that you mention it, I haven't. This was a first.
Yeah. All right, so this episode, brief memory alpha synopsis. The Enterprise is captured by Trelane, the childish ruler of Gothos.
Some spoilers in just one word, somehow.
Yeah. How are you feeling about the Squire of Gothos, Effie?
It had some fun bits. It also just felt a bit derivative in the sense where it's, yeah, we have a set from ancient Earth times to just, abuse the fact that these props were already in existence, and we're going back to a time period we have stuff from because we can't invent too much new stuff, and then having a Deus Ex Machina superior being something without too much explanation, and it just sort of relies on that twist of like, yeah, he's a kid, he's playing with him, and it makes sense for what he's done, but it doesn't explain any of the mechanics that I'm interested in from a sci-fi perspective, or the fantasy shit. Like, oh, but how does any of it work? Because the mirror twist I really liked, just the figuring out like, oh, he's over at the mirror a lot. He likes looking at that thing, and then beyond that, once it's destroyed, it's just, no, I have more shit, and powers, and never mind that. We're gonna gloss over it now. So I was a bit, this is some too many things I've seen before in that sense. Within Trek, even. Right.
Within Trek. And that was the first thing that I wrote down is here we have another immature godlike being.
Yep.
Playing on the theme
was very Charlie X, yeah.
Power without the maturity to handle it. So, because we got that with Gary Mitchell and Where No Man Has Gone Before. We got that again in Charlie X. And this one is much closer to Charlie X because we even have the same basic ending where the parent shows up and is like,
yep,
sorry.
Reprimand him. Whoopsie daisy.
Yeah, he's got some issues.
He does this.
Don't worry, we'll take care of him.
He's like 2. It's, yeah.
But, and that was my second note, is what you already mentioned. I said, I wonder why Trelane needed a machine in the first place, because once Kirk destroyed it, he seemed amused that Kirk thought he didn't have more tricks and did even more fantastic stuff. So what was the point of the machine? I am perfectly okay and in some way enchanted when we have a character whose powers we don't understand. I love the concept of having a character who is a godlike creature who we cannot fathom. We cannot understand, so there's no
beyond
point in knowing.
Comprehension. Exactly. But then make sure to get that point across, and also, I don't know, do something with that character. Because for most of the time Trelane is there, it's the mystery of what even is he, and not he's beyond our comprehension. Oh God, what is he gonna do or anything? We're not engaging with the parent figures in that scenario, basically. But yeah, it can work. It's a very interesting concept. We just get that concept for a snippet at the end, where it's a way to get out of the mess.
Yeah. And, and that's what I felt like it kind of was, because they I don't necessarily agree. Like, I don't know how much. I mean, clearly all the props that he had around his castle were from previous episodes, and they did it. They did a good job with it because, like, just when they walk in and McCoy sees the salt vampire who had taken on the vision of Nancy in the man trap, he recoils a little bit, and they played the music from that episode.
Oh, I didn't even notice that, but that's just because I wouldn't recognize the music yet.
So, like,
that's
cool.
I've known that for a long time. Like, I know the salt vampire. Like, I did recognize that prop,
And they, took great care to make sure that he noticed it too. Like, oh, shit. Like, I know you.
That's good,
But I like that, they were able to use some of that. And I don't know about the castle itself because, like, usually there will be a note somewhere online, and maybe there is, but it wasn't on Memory Alpha, and I did look around otherwise. But usually they'll note, like, man, this one had to, like, took extra long time because they had to construct this giant set. But it seems like this one did go an extra long time, but just because William Campbell wanted a different wig.
Sure. Fair enough.
Well, they gave him a French wig, and he decided it needed to be, like, a specific type of English wig. And
for the judge scene, like, in the courtroom.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
But he wanted it to be more historically accurate, and
fair enough.
Production wound up siding with him. William Shatner complained, and and then production was like, "No, he's right. We need to get a different wig," which they may have done out of spite because apparently Shatner was a bit of a pill.
Also, very possible.
But yeah, so I think it's weird that he needed the mirror machine in the first place. I wanted to know more about that.
It's either or, like, either the mirror matters or it doesn't.
Yeah.
So I was expecting a dynamic of, like, there's gonna be some explanation, and the explanation is nah. There's he's other shit. Like, it's fine.
So an interesting thing about this episode is that they mentioned that he's 900 light years out from seeing Earth.
Yeah.
And he has been seeing the 19th century, which would seem to suggest that he's seeing the 19th century. So he's seeing 900 years past.
Yeah.
Which would put this in the 28th century, except
we're not there.
The original series is later, much later, as in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan in 1982 is finally given a time destination as the 23rd century. So, that's just, you can easily headcanon it if you want.
The 5 centuries, sure. They were just doing maths on the spot. We get it. We've all rounded up.
Actually, you know what? They did not intend it to be the 23rd century on the original series. Roddenberry wanted to keep it ambiguous because he
clearly the star dates. Like, come on,
they never keep anything straight as far as, like, when, like, McCoy will be like,
consistency.
This happened 600 years ago on Earth, and like that. No, it's not. No, that was a weird quirk Roddenberry had for a while, and it means that no one knows how many hundreds of years ago anything is on the original series. You just got to ignore anytime they say anything like that.
Everyone is just bad at history, and he is just deliberately breaking canon where he can. That's lovely. That's good to know.
It is, except, they do keep it in a very specific way just so they can break it later, but...
Yeah, no, fair enough.
It makes sense, and it's basically with Khan when he says, like, they say that he launched in 1996 and the eugenics wars happened in 1992, and they continue that in Wrath of Khan. Yes, it was 1996. Obviously, we're past that now, so they have since retconned it in one of the new shows. To be
fun. Of course, yeah.
But then they also had somebody be like, this shit was supposed to happen in 1992. And you're like, and people like me are like, yay!
References.
References and confirmation that the timeline has been changed.
Yeah. It explains a lot.
So one of the things I thought was interesting was, well, first of all, let me just say that William Campbell is really fantastic as Trelane.
Absolutely. He is chewing scenery left and right, and it's fun as hell to watch.
Yeah, he is terribly interesting to watch. He's just completely madcap, and he's having a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a point where Trelane, we know that he's been looking at the wrong century, and he presumes that Uhura was undoubtedly a prize from a conquest because she's this Nubian princess.
God. Yeah. Oh, geez. Like, it's historically accurate, but God, is he an asshole in that point. That's a very uncomfortable exchange.
Yeah.
Where you can just see her face like, what do I even do with this kind of ancient racism bullshit?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
And he says, undoubtedly from a conquest, and Kirk pauses, and he looks annoyed. And then he very darkly murmurs, undoubtedly. Mm-hmm. And it even might suggest that he was looking back on slavery. Because even at this point in our history, that's not a thing that we're particularly proud of.
No.
But he doesn't dispute it. And watching it this time, I really found myself thinking about how it was funny because I was thinking about like, oh man, it might have been interesting if Kirk had pushed back on things like that. Because he did just kind of roll with Trelane a lot.
Yeah, he is like, let's just he's not going to stop talking. So and then he's going to push at the wrong moments on the wrong things, where it's he's basically only going to push back when he has to fake like, oh no, I'm defending this maiden, screw you, she's mine. That type of energy is what he's bringing, again playing along with his time period thing of like, this will make sense to him. Trying to actually explain what our society is like will take too long.
Yeah, but I was thinking like, what if he hadn't pushed back? What if he had tried to explain that Earth was united, that we've evolved past the need to conquer on Earth, we're all united, and then I wondered where that would take the story. And then, like an idiot, I was like, oh my God, you've seen this. You've seen what you're proposing in your mind. Roddenberry did the same thing when the Enterprise encountered the godlike being known as Q, who was much more popular than Trelane. But Star Trek fans are very, including John Delancey, who played Q, we're all like, oh yeah, he's based on Q, on Trelane. Yeah. Q will show up, and I know you haven't seen this far. Q will show up in different historical garb, and but Picard, when they encounter Q, he insists that they've evolved beyond the darkness in the past, and it just infuriates Q, and Q winds up putting them through a trial to prove that humanity is still a grievously savage race.
Sure. So that makes sense. Also, that is the alternate route. Yeah.
Q is not a child, by the way. Q is just an omnipotent being who has unexplainable powers, and he does answer to the Q continuum, but it's just interesting, like, because I wonder, like, how much Roddenberry looked back on the Squire of Gothos and said the same thing I did. Like, what if Kirk had pushed back and said, no, we're like this? Like, what would that have done?
What are we? Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
That's something to look forward to because, there was a lot of just... I hope everyone at the time was also equally very fucking uncomfortable with what was happening on screen at that point, where it's like, it's clear he's the asshole. Mm-hmm. And we don't need to point that out, but also, God, someone slap him across the face. Eventually he gets slapped across the face, but, with the glove, it's not quite as satisfying.
Yeah. By the way, a few episodes ago, we had a conversation where, by hook or by crook, and I can't remember exactly how it played out. I'm sure I'll have like a little previously on, but I asked you whatever happened to your dick, and this episode answered it. Did you notice it? I'm sending you a picture.
Oh no. Oh God, no.
I'm sending you two pictures, actually, and I'll post it for the audience. Trelane just has it on his mantle. Like it even has the label Effie Dick.
Well played, sir. Well played. I was wondering why we were padding around this room for so long. I was honestly just looking away from the screen for a bit because I was like, okay, I can hear the music still going. Where like I'm having a smoke. It's fine. Because I was like, oh yeah, the production department they've done so much work on these props. We're panning around. I get it. Not important for the story. I should have been paying attention.
Yeah.
This is very clear.
There's a great big jar with a dick and formaldehyde with a label that says Effie Dick.
Yeah. It makes a ton of sense. And like, where would it go but to an omnipotent being and who would keep it around for like years and years and years? Like, that's yeah, I mean, like some anachronism is there, of course, because of the couple centuries in between. But
yeah,
really, who cares at this point? Like,
yeah,
it is good to have, you know, the relief of knowing at least it's in a good place. Yeah.
By the way, part of me is very happy that at some point I'm going to die and someone's going to be going through my files on my computer and see that there are pictures that I have titled Effie's Dick. If they haven't already stumbled upon, because I share Photoshop with my sister, she may see the project file in the cloud.
Oh, that's delightful. That's even better. Yeah. I mean, I am curious why the surgeon who performed the vaginoplasty decided to waste skin by first circumcising me before putting the dick in formaldehyde. That is honestly just an interesting choice, but you know, to each their own, and you know, he might have his preferences. It's what happens, you know.
I couldn't have known.
It's less of a thing in Europe, and you know, I'm technically Jewish, but not by faith, so you know, didn't happen.
No, it didn't even cross my mind. I was like,
it didn't cross my mind until I decided to make that joke.
Yeah, I needed to just find like.
You just needed
Google,
to download a dick pic. Yeah.
I'm like, I need a dick in a jar. I specifically looked for dicks in jars.
Yeah.
And I found several. It was disheartening.
Of course, yeah. The Rasputin thing, it's out there.
I almost used his.
Yeah, but that would have been too recognizable. Let's be real.
That's what I decided upon. I'm like, he's recognizable.
Yeah, everyone knows that one. Ugh.
Anyway,
we got we saw a picture of that in high school, and I was like, "Is this still technically history class?" I guess. Yeah. We had weird teachers. Let's put it that way.
God. I guess we can move on to quotes. I really liked Trelane's. Do you know that you're one of the few predator species that preys even on itself? I really liked that one.
Yeah, that one was like there are those lines in there. There's just the overall arc is just not satisfying. Where so it's hard to say the writing is bad because there's good writing. There's just no thematic, like in terms of coherence. It's just like there we go again.
Yeah, and by the way, when Kurt shoots that mirror, like it was like you guys were just going for straight up comedy because like all the boing oing 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 wee, like, oh my god. It's like
that's what computers do when they explode.
It's like when the car flips upside
There's a
down
lot of
in James
springs
Bond
in there.
and it does a slide whistle. It was like, oh my god.
Oh, I didn't realize that was the thing. I grew up on the modern shit. You know that.
Yeah. There was specifically an older one. It was a Roger Moore, and
oh Lord,
the car is supposed to jump and flip or something, and they added in a damn slide whistle.
Jesus.
And it was
I realized Bond is supposed to be funny and everything, like in its conception, but I really like Casino Royale and Daniel Craig, and it's just sometimes going back to the old stuff after that is slightly jarring.
Well,
and just not even getting into the problematic bits, because there's something about women in Bond.
But Bethany and I went back and watched a bunch of old James Bond, and like Dr. No is still Dr. No and On Her Majesty's Secret Services are still our top two, and they were in a lot of ways very, very, very serious in those first 2 or 3. But by the time they got to Roger Moore, like in the 70s, like there's voodoo, there's car flips with slide whistles, there's all sorts of wacky shit that you're just like, what are we even doing here?
I remember, like, I think I watched Octopussy at some point, probably purely for the title, because that was exciting at that age, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I vividly remember the opening scene with the funeral procession where they kill someone midway through and like put him in the casket. Because that feels like the vibe I want at my funeral. Not necessarily there's someone getting murdered and put in my casket, because it's full in there, hopefully. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing I'll be there. But just the general New Orleans dancey vibe, like I need it to be a party.
Yeah, that was a cool bit, though. I did like that bit.
yeah, that was a great scene, which is probably why it's the only one I remember.
Uh-huh. That's probably all I remember from that movie, too.
I did listen to that podcast with you two watching the Bond stuff, because I was like, I'm never going to keep up with it in actuality, so I'm better off just listening to the synopses. And I was correct, because by now I've forgotten all of the storylines. Well, but I do. Yeah, I did have the fun of listening to you guys.
The last one we did was Octopussy before we just stopped.
Right.
It's been like 3 years.
I mean, you can't finish every project. Come on now.
I mean, we do plan to finish it eventually. Like, we wanted to go back and watch the rest of them, but we just...
There's other stuff out there.
I know. I don't know where I would... because we had a little mishap here. I don't know what we were talking about on the old version in the other timeline.
Yeah. We just had the first memorable quote, then we talked about writing, and then there was something about the sound effect, because you got onto Bond because of the whistle.
Oh yeah, the little the
mirror exploding. Yeah. There's a lot of springs in computers, just more than you would think.
I mean, all right.
It was silly.
I loved this exchange. Spock says, I object to you. I object to intellect without discipline. I object to power without constructive purpose. And Trelane says, why, Mr. Spock, you do have one saving grace after all. You're ill-mannered.
Yeah, which is just, what?
No.
How does that...
I love that, like, his saving grace is that he's ill-mannered in Trelane's eyes. I love it. I love that he's... Just like that's what he's attracted to on Spock.
That's apparently a good thing, And I don't. Yeah, he's very up in his manners at all times because of the whole, century he's observed. But yeah, he is himself not exactly well mannered, so it makes sense.
And that's the only reason he's interested in these the Enterprise crew at all anyway, is because he told his parents, like, I'm not done studying my predators or whatever.
It's very much I fully expect you to still be very much bad people, and why aren't you worse people?
Yeah. When Spock says, my father's from the planet Vulcan, and then, like, Trelane goes, and are its natives predatory? And Spock is like, not
there's
generally.
One interest, yeah.
There have been exceptions,
yeah.
So that's
which came across as delightfully threatening.
Yeah, that's his whole thing, and I do think it's funny that that's what but he's a child, and that's what he's most compelled by, which is an interesting commentary on us as a species, because like the more we want to see predators in action, the more immature we are.
It is very much a little boys rule this fucking society. And that has brought us to, not the utopia place we are in a couple hundred years later, however many. But it has, dictated our past, especially given how many actual kings were little boys at one point in time.
Yeah.
It happens. Oh, God.
And I love when like Kirk shoots the mirror out and he screams, "Oh, the remarkable treachery of the species!"
You're so treacherous. Oh,
yeah.
How dare you defy me? And yet I'm fascinated by your ingenuity. Whereas, like, just don't be a dick.
Yeah. And as he's like about to hang Kirk, and Kirk can just be like, "Oh, that's not fun though. Let's do something else." He's yes, I like this. Let's do something fun. Like
make it a game for sport.
Yeah. So do you feel bad for the salt vampire and the bird creature that we saw in the cage that he just like vaporizes with a phaser? Were you like, are they in suspended animation too?
One would assume, right? Because they're suits, but they're not like in this context. They're beings. He didn't empty them out. There wasn't removal of guts, and then they were just suspended, probably. So that does also
but they
result
weren't green.
in some questions. They weren't what?
They weren't green like Spock and Sulu. I mean, Kirk and Sulu were.
That's fair, but that would have cost extra. That's another effect.
Also fair.
No, I was about to say, it does also raise the question of when did he get his hands on a salt vampire, given that was the last of its species? Mm-hmm. So did he remove that way before he got interested in Earth? Or
if he could remove all that shit from the 19th century, or maybe he just created it there because he'd seen it somewhere.
Yeah. So he's been looking at Earth. That fascinates him. But he's also like, salt vampires. Mm-hmm. I've also looked at this one planet that would look like a grand old beast in my study. And sure.
Or he's just friends with, the Telosians, and they're like, here's this bird creature. It died. Do you want it? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Give me one. I did enjoy the music, by the way. Just that added a lot to the vibe of the era, and I did also enjoy the exchange with Uhura, where it was like, I don't know every instrument, and I don't know how to play this, and then just the yes you do now, which is both fun and still creepy. Like, that's a good essence to go for, where it's like, but the horror of having your hands moved must also suck, because you're not implanting knowledge, probably, in terms of your...
No, he said you do now. So he put the knowledge in her head, and as she started playing, she was playing because she was smiling. She wasn't horrified. She was literally smiling when she realized she knew how to play it. Like,
that's fair.
I thought that was I noted that because I thought that was specifically a very nice touch from Nichelle Nichols, like knowing that her character is very musical. And then she's like, holy shit, I know how to play the harpsichord. Like,
no, there was a sense of enjoyment there, but it's not necessarily consistent with the rest of its powers, where I would assume a different thing at first, and then she's delighted, and I'm like, oh, we're implanting knowledge now. How are we doing that? Mm-hmm. Are we also rearranging matter in our brains? How does that even... Come on.
Yeah, how indeed.
So that is another, beyond our comprehension, I suppose.
Well, But if Trelane could put them in suspended animation and 3 hours pass without them even knowing it, which means that he would have to alter every bit of their bodies to keep them in that suspended animation, he could certainly implant some knowledge. Sure.
But but if he's like literally suspending their bodies... I wouldn't have chosen the green layer over them.
I wouldn't have either.
Yeah.
Because that very much...
that suggests more of an encapsulation type.
It
you're
suggests-
frozen in carbonite more than you're frozen in I cannot move, I cannot think, I'm not here.
Right.
I don't know.
It suggests technology rather than power from...
Yeah.
Like, but,
It's not... it doesn't feel as telepathic. But then again, if it is that telepathic, why does he need the machine in the wall?
It's deeply important to him until he doesn't need it, and then it doesn't make
exactly.
sense.
Yeah, there's no starting off with who is our character, what does he need, what is the power set. There's just how do we get this story along to the conclusion we want to get to.
Right. Of course, it could be that the machine itself was basically Ritalin for a very ADHD child god. Like, it just helps him focus his power. Because then once he's losing it, he's just like throwing the planet around in space. Like,
yeah. We're using it as a ship now. Fuck you. We're going all over the place. It might be that. It might have been a way for the just keep the kid under control. It's the nanny for the two parents. Yeah, and that's the idea that like these parents just like kind of threw him in a playpen that is our galaxy. And it was just like, go make a planet. Yeah, just create something, entertain yourself.
Play with these ants. It'll be fine. Like, damn it.
No kid has ever played with ants without crushing them.
And I loved that line from his parents where they were like, they're beings, Trelane. They have spirit. They're superior. Like, almost suggests that, like, whatever these creatures are, they sense a soul of some sort in the humans. Like, no, they're not there yet, but they are superior, so you need to leave them alone.
Yeah, just have some fucking respect. Like, the superiority is an interesting choice of words, where I'm inclined to interpret it almost more as a designation of, like, you have inferior beings and superior beings, and these are superior beings who indeed have a ways to go, but will get on our level somehow. Mm-hmm. Rather than they're superior to us, because I don't think they have a conceptualization of that.
No.
So it's an interesting...
I didn't take it as they were superior to them. I took it
as
like,
exactly.
No, they're
it's like,
on a different plane. You can't play with these like they're nothing. This is something.
Yeah, exactly. That they have spirit was more interesting to me than, like, that's the core, and then their superior is a bit more up for interpretation, because nothing in there suggests that we are superior to Trelane in many ways.
No, I don't think that was the implication.
Except for, him being an asshole.
Yeah, I think the implication was because of the structure, they have spirit. First of all, they point out they're beings.
Yeah, which is...
They have spirit.
Interesting, yeah.
And then they're superior, which means there is some delineation for them to where, like, if you want to play with a planet that is lifeless, if you want to play with, atoms and what have you.
All fun and games. Do not play with the beings.
Don't play with the actual people who are spirited. Spirited beings. I don't know. But
it suggests a whole lot of other interesting shit that wasn't in the episode.
Yeah. So according to an interview with William Campbell in the world of Star Trek, in his fight with William Shatner in the forest, he fell down and dislocated his shoulder. Fortunately, as he flung his arm up in his instinctive reaction to the excruciating pain, the shoulder popped back into its socket.
Ideal.
Yeah, and in the scene where Kirk swings on a tree branch and knocks the sword out of Trelane's hand, you can see Campbell grimace at the sudden pain in his arm.
Delightful.
Yeah. Weirdly, this episode marks the first appearance of Michael Barrier as DeSaul, the resident guy who was angry.
Who?
DeSaul, the dark-haired crew member who was just angry and wanted to attack Trelane without any...
Right. He had a very cool shot of him being frozen mid-attack, and that's all I remember of his character. Yes.
And Trelane mentions that he's French. The character returns later in This Side of Paradise and Cat's Paw while he serves as the navigator in this episode, he is a biologist in this side of paradise and an assistant chief engineer in Cat's Paw. So he's just trying to find his place, man. He's just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, he's either very multi-talented or not talented at all, and just, stopped and started a bunch of courses in college trying to find himself.
Well, in the first, in George Takei's first appearance on Where No Man Has Gone Before, he was wearing a blue shirt and he was a biologist, and they kept that, because they had that whole thing where Rand came into the green room where she had the hand puppet, and that was Sulu's place. That was Sulu's little area, and he was so apparently he still does that, but he was like, actually, I do actually want to be a commander at some point, so we're going to switch this gold shirt, and I'm going to go on the command track, but also do this shit over here.
Of course. I have multiple purposes in life. We're all, faceted beings in many, many different areas of expertise. Oh.
So did you notice that when they went to beam down, they put on little masks with tanks instead of the environmental suits that they had in the Naked Time? You remember those shower curtains? The orange shower curtains?
Yeah, the contagion. Yeah. That was far more capable of actually keeping something out theoretically. But this was mostly funny because of how much compressed gas is in those tiny packs on your the fanny bags. Come on.
Well, they did that because in an October 27th, 1966 memo from Robert H. Justman to Gene Kuhn, he says, if we transport McCoy, Yeager, and DeSalle down to the surface of Gothos in the orange spacesuits that we used in the Naked Time, the audience will take a full half hour to stop laughing from what our people look like.
I mean, that wasn't a problem the last time, so...
Wasn't it? I mean, the rest of the episode we were just laughing at Sulu running around bare-chested with a fencing sword.
Yeah, see, that distracts a lot from the hazard suits.
Anyway,
sometimes you just need more bare-chested Sulu. Apparently, that is what this episode lacked.
He was in shape.
Yep.
Well
done.
Every time I see him and watch that episode, I go, "Damn, girl, shit!" Got the abs, got the pecs. I'm like, man, dude was in shape. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know that I have anything else on this episode.
Me neither. It's just it's ever so slightly simplistic in that sense. Where it's just I think we've been over most of it, unless I'm forgetting some really interesting shit, but I don't think so.
It's got a vague anti-war theme going on. It's got it's really just and I do appreciate the he was only a child trope that Star Trek really made popular. I feel like I've seen it better. I can see how
they got there.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen it better in other places, and that's not at all the issue with an issue with William Campbell, who played Trelane.
No. He just wasn't given much more.
Right. I mean,
the performance is there. It's just we've seen this.
Yeah.
That's my.
Yeah.
And if it was a case of I've seen this a trillion times outside of Trek, I would still have the presence of mind to be but that came after, so, they were establishing a thing. Except now my problem is I've seen this a couple times before within this show. Mm-hmm. And if you're watching everything instead of just popping in 1 week or not, then that is an issue where you're like, that's your same way out of the hole you were digging. And that does take away from the suspense where I'm interested up until the mirror, and then it's like, oh, you've abandoned all rules. There is no suspense of what is he using. There's none of that.
They established rules of a sort in their story, and then they broke those rules.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think I would have been more interested if I would have found it a better story if they broke his toy and tried to get out of there and then realized that he was just a child, or maybe like the parents come to him and say, you broke his toy, we gave that to him, could you like go back and like, help him out
cheer
or
him
something?
up. Yeah.
Like,
that would
you don't understand. Fun. He's a child. We don't want to reprimand him. He's not there yet. He doesn't understand yet. Can you go back and apologize?
Please just console. Yeah.
That would have been funny. That would have been funny and interesting, and have the same note of like, yes, he seemed malevolent. Turns out he was just a petulant kid.
Yeah. Which, doesn't quite excuse racism, where it's like, but, he's taught himself racism by looking at us. So really, who's to blame?
Yeah, I didn't think that he was specifically being racist. He was just like, I feel like he was almost
he was
amused
saying
by
some shit.
I feel like he was like, because it was like he was surprised that he had made a time mistake. So I feel like he was like, trying to relate to Kirk on what he believed Kirk's level was, but he was also speaking to Kirk in this sort of bemused fashion, like, undoubtedly through some conquest, So he's just like all about like how a kid would play cowboys and Indians without ever thinking about the problem with
what we did
to the
Native
Indians.
Americans
like,
in this duality.
I feel like that was where Trelane was. I don't think he was truly racist. He's just a little kid. He's just stupid and romanticizing a specific thing. And
fair. In hindsight, indeed, that makes sense. Doesn't make it right. Does mean we should probably explain some things to some children, but
right.
It's a fun added layer to then look back with. Yeah.
Once again, I kind of wanted Kirk to be a little more Picard in this instance and be like,
I get that. Yeah, just
come here, Trelane, sit on my knee. Now, racism is not okay.
Yeah, no, but it doesn't have to be a lecture for it to be a struggle for Kirk with parenting, because Lord knows we've seen him struggle with that with Charlie.
Yeah.
So there's something to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
You could fish an arc out of that shit, but
By the way, I love that Kirk asks Trelane's parents, like, what is Trelane? What are you? And they're like, we're not answering that. They just, like, move
never mind.
On. They just don't even, like, tell. They're like, no.
Don't acknowledge that. Like, we want answers. I know the audience wants answers. We're not getting any of them, are we? Yeah, okay.
Well, as far as I can recall, we never get any.
Nope.
Though, William Campbell does return as another role.
Oh.
In the original series, no less.
That sounds like more canon breaking. Love it.
Oh, no. He plays a Klingon. He's in makeup.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
But otherwise,
I spoke too soon.
Otherwise, he does pretty much act exactly the same. He's just like,
that's fun.
Just ridiculous and foppish and like, my dear Captain Kirk, he's...
There's one thing he does well. Very, very well. Okay, sure.
But I still love Koloth. I love him as doing that character. It's like if you cast like Paul Lynde, Paul Lynde's one of my all-time favorite people on old television, and he was just ridiculously hilarious and over the top. And if you I don't care how many characters you cast Paul Lynde as, you're gonna want him to be Paul Lynde in every one of those.
And sometimes you just need them to do their stick. Like that's what it's for.
Yeah, like
they're just very good at doing the one thing.
I'm like, okay, Paul Lynde, you're gonna be a Klingon, but can you call yourself Uncle Arthur and laugh when you say it?
I am like, these references are definitely beyond me, but they're enjoyable nonetheless. They're just in their spirit, you know.
Go look up Paul Lynde. It is one of the funniest things.
I will once we get done. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it. That's it for this episode. We're gonna get off of that.
Sure.
Next time we're talking about Arena. Mm-hmm. Kirk fights the Gorn.
Yes.
So that's very
Gornicle.
That's iconic. That seeped into the mainstream in a way that a lot of Star Trek things didn't. So
good to know.
Yeah, I don't know why. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. We'll start shitting on it, next time.
Yay! All right. Thank you for listening. Until next time, Jolon True, live long and prosper.
And eat a dick, people.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Roberson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.